guys, welcome to the Kodango YouTube channel. As you can see today, we have on our screen a dashboard with some data. This data is coming from CoinRanking. So if you can recall, a few months back I created a tutorial using the CoinRanking API, but as at then I made use of a system called course anywhere to help us bypass the course error. But today I'll be using Node.js to consume the API from CoinRanking. This helps us to avoid any form of course errors, and then we can connect directly to the API without having to cut corners with the course anywhere URL we used when we were doing this in the front end using JavaScript. So quickly, let me show you what we have done here today. So this dashboard, as you can see, we have a sidebar and then we have a nav menu. So in this nav menu we have a search, and over here we have a table listing the different cryptocurrencies, their ranks, their prices, the markets capitalization, the symbol icon, and then the coin detail. So another functionality this particular dashboard has is the search. And so let's test this out. So if I were to search for something like let's say Dogecoin, so if I anything that matches that particular name, it's gonna filter through the list and then display them on the page. Another crypto we can probably search for is let's say something like let's say BitTorrent. Bits. So it kind of filters through it. Another thing we have here is the coin detail. So if we click on this, it's going to take us to another page. That is the cryptocurrency, the coin ranking page, which shows further details about that particular coin, as you can see here. So this is all we're gonna review today. And so I'll head over to Visual Studio Code. As you can see here, we have two folders. We have one called backend, we have one called frontend, and we also have an image folder which we'll be using later in the front end. But because we are starting with the backend for now, so I'm gonna open that in the terminal. So let me navigate to that particular folder. So backend, and then the first thing we need to run is npm init -y. The y flags prevent us from entering some default data, so which helps us to speed up our time. So next up is to install the needed packages. So let me start by saying npm install. We'll be needing express. I think we'll need 4 packages for this project. We'll need course, we'll need Morgan, and finally we are going to need what we call node fetch to help us fetch data from the API. So let's press enter. So while waiting for that, we should head over to the backend and then create the necessary file we're gonna need. First one I'm gonna do is to create the dots. What am I doing here? First one we need to create is the .env file. So .env, that's where we store our access token. So that's where we store our access token. Then the next file we're gonna create is the server.js file. So let's create this server. This is the entry point of our application, and it's in fact the only file we'll be creating for this project. So server.js. The next one is the git ignore. Yes, we would need to put the files we don't need into this particular file ignore. Let's start off with the server.js. So let's bring in this package. So I'm going to say const express so let's initialize our app with express. So I'll say const app is equals to express. So the next thing we need to create is our port, but before we do that, let me also do this. I will say app.use let me call course. This helps us to prevent any form of course error. And then for Morgan also, we need to do this app.use Morgan. Okay, then what we need to do next is now to create our port. So let's say const port is equals to process. Okay, I just realized I haven't installed one more package, which is the env package. Npm install .env. This gives us access to probably have access to that particular file. Without that package, we can't have access to it. So what I'll say is process.env.port, or let's say port 5000. Actually, we could use any number there. So let's go with 5000. Then we can then run app.listen for app to listen on that particular port. Then creating an anonymous arrow function, we can say open a curly bracket. Okay, then let's console log that. So console dot log, let me make use of the backtick and just say listening on ports. So that should likely be 5000, just what we have in this variable here. So let me save that, and then yes, our .env file has been installed. So let me, okay, to start our application, we need to also maybe install nodemon as a dev dependency. So to do that, I can just say npm install nodemon dash, then use the dash d flag to notify um, the package running that it's installed as a dev dependency. So while that is loading, let's set up our package.json. So for npm to know how to start our application, in the script objects here, what I'm going to do is to get rid of everything there. Then I'm going to have a start key right here. Then we can just say node server.js, and then we can now say something like probably dev. This works. There are so many ways you can do this, but um i I just choose to do it this way. So let me save that, and then so now that nodemon has been installed as a dev dependency, we can just run nodemon server.js, and let's see the result of that. Okay, it runs, but it says Morgan deprecated undefined format. I think that's because we didn't add a name to Morgan. Yeah, let's just do this. Let me add something like let's say coins, and then save. Let's see if that error still persists. Okay, I think it doesn't anymore. I think that particular field is required. So as you can see from here, we now have listening on port 5000, and then we have coins. Because we haven't made any requests, we just have coins there. Nothing is happening in that place. But once we start, once we create our API, once we get our routes, you understand what Morgan does further. It helps us visualize what we've done for every request we've made. So to create the API routes, one thing we need is from the CoinRanking documentation or from the CoinRanking website is the API key that is required. So to get the API key, we need to head over to CoinRanking websites. So I have the CoinRanking website open there. So what I can do now is to head over to their home page. As you can see, CoinRanking provides a lot of statistics on the crypto world. If you want to know the prices, you want to get up-to-date information about the market capitalization and things like that on all cryptocurrencies, I think this is one of the places you should come to get that particular data. So heading over to the documentation, let me click on that. Then we see this header here which says generate key. So let me create on let me click on that rather, and then let me type a name, the code angle, and then let me enter an email address, like a random. Okay, you can enter your email address here. So let me just enter my name, the G at gmail.com. Agree with the terms and condition. Well, I don't need any updates. I just need the API, so I'll just click on generate API. So that will take very little amount of your time before you get your API key. So there you go, as easy as ABC. So let's grab this API key and then head over to our backend. Then in the .env file, we can just do something like coin underscore ranking underscore API underscore key is equals to, let's just paste that particular API key there, then save. In an ideal world, um, we need to put this particular file in the git ignore so that when we push it won't reflect in the backend. Also, what we need to put here is the node modules. So let me start with node modules, node underscore modules, as well as the .env file. So this should not be pushed to the version control. Now that that's done, we can head back to the server.js. We already have our API key. I think that's all we need. Now we can create our API. So to get started with that, I'm just gonna say app. Since it's a get request, I'll say app.get. Then the API I'm gonna call / coins. So because we are getting a lot of coins, let me show you something in the documentation on CoinRanking. On the documentation, you can see this particular sidebar. You see coins. You click on get coins, you can see the particular endpoint here. You see it's / coins. It gives us some data, and then they show us how to get the particular details for the coins. As you can see, this is the URL https api.coinranking. The API is version 2, then / coins. So as you can see, they are making use of requests to get the data, but for us, we are making use of node fetch. So they also show how you can do this in PHP. Is there any other language? I think those two languages, PHP and Node. So let's head over to VS Code and then create a route for the API. So we already have / coins, so we can now say we're making use of async await. From here, I can also say requests. It has to be in this particular order: request response, and then an arrow function, then followed by curly brace. So we can just create a variable here. We can say const URL is equals to, now we need the link of the API. So let me just quickly get that from the, instead of typing it out, I can just get that from here. So / coins, and then paste that inside this quote. So I think that's all. And then next thing we need to do is to make use of async await here. So I can just say async that spells correctly, yeah, async, then create an arrow function, and then inside here we make use of a try and a catch. So let me create the syntax for that. So try and then catch. The catch is going to have something like, let's see, in case of an error, we can just have something like console.log error. So inside the catch, inside the try rather, we can just now say await. So we make use of fetch here, which we import fetch. which you imported earlier, the variable we created here, which is coming from node fetch. So we can just say await fetch, then we make use of the URL. So I can just say um, the URL is the link to the coin ranking API we have here. So it's going to have um, two arguments here. So the first argument is URL. The second one is going to take in the headers. Sometimes when I was working with this, it did not really require the headers. I was still able to get um the API, but according to the documentation, which let me show you one more time, it says it requires the headers as X access token. So that was exactly what I did. I had to follow the documentation. So what we're gonna have here is X access token. So inside the X access token, we can now make a call. This is supposed to be a backtick. So because we'll be making no, sorry, the backtick is supposed to be here because we'll be making a reference to the um environmental variables. So we can just say process dot env dot inside the env file we have coin ranking API. So we can just call that and then make a reference to that. So it's going to get a particular what's it called, that particular access token, a coin ranking and API key, rather not access token. It's going to get that API key from coin ranking. Then it's going to return a promise, so we can subscribe to that by running a dot. Then so it returns a response. So we need to catch that response with the use of the arrow function. We can just say convert it to a JSON, so response.json, and then it returns another promise. So we can say dot then again, and then catch that particular JSON before we now make use of another arrow function. Then finally we can console log this JSON as well as return the response by saying res.json and then passing in the JSON. So I think this is all we need to do to create the API. So let me save this, and then so I'm going to test out this particular API using a tool called Talend API instead of using something like Postman. I believe this is probably straightforward. Since it's a Chrome extension, it makes things easier. So what I'm going to do is to clear this out. It has similar syntax. So we're running this on local host. So what we can do is to do HTTP localhost is running on port 5000. So I'm going to say / coins. It's a get request, so I'm going to change this to get, and then let's send this particular request. Okay, it seems we are not getting the request. One thing I need to check, I think probably we okay, let me see. I think we need to call this function here since for it to render. So I need to make use of this call here, and then let's save and see what happens. Let's try this again in the browser. Okay, yeah, great. So we are able to access the coin ranking API from our local host 5000 / coins. As you can see, we now have the data, we have the coins, which will be looping through to display on the table like we did earlier. It has all the data we need: the UID, the symbol, the name, the icon URL, the price, market capitalization, and the like. So in the front end of this project, we have our front end folder over here, and if you notice, we have an image here. So this image, the link to this image, which I got from Pixabay, is going to be in the link to GitHub, which you can find in the description below. So um after that, I think what we need to do is now to create the other files we need in this particular front end folder. So the three files we need is the In the tables.html, let me generate a template and just say coin ranking data here. So in this particular file, we'll make use of two things. We'll make use of Bootstrap 5. So I can just go to the Get Bootstrap website. And also we need font awesome. So I also go to fontawesome.com. So in the Get Bootstrap, I click on the Get Started. It's gonna take us to where we have the link to the CSS file. We can put this in the head section. Yes. And also we'll make use of the script tag. So I can just copy this to and then head back. This will be somewhere within the body. And while we are at it, let me link the app.js. So I can just say script, then source is coming from, since it's in the same level, I can just say app.js, and then let's close the script tag as it should be. And also we can also link the style.css. So to do that, let's open the link. So it's gonna be style sheets, and then the href, like the app.js is on the same level. I can just say style.css. So that's pretty much it. So the last link we need to get is the font awesome link. Okay, in the font awesome profile, I can go to font awesome CDN. So once I click on that, I'll have access to my CDN. So once I click on that, I can put it also in the head section, probably below the Bootstrap. So I think that's all. So on this page, what I'm going to do now is um I'm going to design the nav bar and the sidebar, but I think that will take a bit of our time. So what I'm going to do is just to paste them in here. So I'm going to paste the nav bar and the sidebar. Remember, we're using Bootstrap, so most of these classes are coming from Bootstrap. So what we have here is a nav bar. We have a button here. When anytime the screen size is on mobile, it kind of helps us to create a hamburger menu which can push down some of the contents. Then over here we have a div that contains the sidebar. Over here is where we have the something we call like something like the logo, and then the search inputs. um and in the search input we have some icons over here. So the link to the git of this code is going to be in the description, so be on the lookout for that. So on the css, we still also need to paste some css snippets here. So we have a sidebar class which we kind of attached our image to on here. The image is also going to be in the github link. So you can always use any image you want. So it contains some background properties like position, repeat size, and also over here we have a media query for the sidebar and then also for the nav bar. So when they are on mobile sizes, for it to be responsive. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save both files, and then we're going to take a look at it in the browser to see how it looks. Yeah, and there you go. So we have our sidebar over here and also our nav bar. So what I'm going to however design here is the tables. I think that's why we are here. We are working with the tables. That's where we'll be putting our data. But for this we just have to paste the code to create the tables. I'm going to start off with the comment that says tables start as well as tables end. I'm going to put this in a comment. So inside the table start, I'm going to have a tag called section. So inside this section, we can have a div. So this div is going to contain a class called container fluid, as well as a class called margin top of 5. This is coming from Bootstrap 5. So inside this div, we're going to have a row. So I'm going to say div, I'm going to give it a row class as well as a margin bottom of 5. Then next up, we're going to have for responsiveness for different screen sizes. So another div is going to be created there, and we're going to have for extra large screen sizes a cool extra large of 10, as well as for large screen sizes this will be 9, and then for medium screen sizes this will be 8. So another div we'll be having here is to align the rows to the center. So I'm going to have another div with a class of row, and then we're going to align the items as center. Okay, I think we're going to create one more div here. So this will take in a class of, if you are wondering the type of extension I'm using, this is called Emmet. It comes by default with Visual Studio Code, so it's very helpful, makes our work faster. So now we can now create the something like the header for the table. So I'm going to say h3, and inside h3 I'll just say all cryptocurrencies. All cryptocurrency prices, or let's just say data. So under this h3 tag, we have our table finally. So the table, remember we're making use of Bootstrap 5 classes, so we're gonna say table, and our table is gonna take in a class of table, because of course we're creating a table. So it's gonna be a table, another class called table stripped, so give it some stripes. Then we're also gonna, our table is gonna have a background of light, so bg-lights, and then the text is gonna be center, so text-center. So press enter for that. Then inside the table, our table is gonna have an head, so I'm gonna say t-head. So t-head. So inside the t-head, we're gonna have a table row. So this row is going to be where we'll put each of our table headers. So the table row is gonna have a class of text muted. So text-muted. So inside the text-muted row, we're gonna have some headers. So the first one is gonna be name. Let me duplicate this 7 more times. So we're gonna have a name, we're gonna have a rank, name, rank, price, market cap, symbol, icon, and lastly coin detail. So let me save and let's see how it looks in the browser. So there you have it. It's looking a bit better, as you can see. So next is next thing we need to have is content, and this is gonna be after the table head. So after the table head, we're gonna have a table body, but in the body we're gonna do some DOM manipulation in the JavaScript part. So inside the table body, we're gonna have an ID which we're gonna call data. So we're gonna append the data inside of the JavaScript, not in the HTML. So we're gonna leave this like we're gonna leave everything like this. So in the app.js file, the first thing we need to do is to get the URL of our local server. So I can just say const, I'm gonna make this uppercase. So CoinRanking API, this will be URL. Local hosts, which is localhost 5000. That was what we called it in our backend. So slash coins. So I think we're good to go with that. The local hosts, the 5000 ports is coming from this year. We did that earlier in the backend. So I'm gonna close this. I don't think we'll need it in the meantime. So after this, the next thing we need to do is to try to log this data in the console. At least for us to do anything, we need the data to be in the console, and to be able to do that, we need to create a function that loads out the coin. So I'm gonna create a new function and I'm gonna call it load coins. So here we go, const load coins. I'm gonna start off with the async function. So async, gonna open a bracket, and then also we're gonna be making use of the try catch block. So this is the latest syntax used in JavaScript, so makes things easier for us. So let me open a try catch block. So a try, then we'll have a catch to catch any errors we may be having in the course of the project or when we load things in the browser. So open a bracket there, so we can just console log that error. So console.log error. Now heading back to our try block, I can create a variable. So I can say const res is equals to, we're gonna await. So we're making use of fetch. Fetch is a default JavaScript method that helps us to get data from an API. So I'm gonna open a bracket and it's gonna take in the CoinRanking API URL. That's what it does. It's a get function by default. So although it can also take in other HTTP methods like post, put, and the likes, but by default it's a get, so we don't need to specify any form of method for that. So the next variable we're gonna create is the response of the data. So let me create that, const data response. So data response is also gonna await the response, and that will be res.json, converting the data to JSON. Now what we need to do is to try to load the data in the console. So what, so let's create a console.log. So console.log data response. Now for this to show in the browser, we need to call this function for it to load on the browser at the first instance. So I'm going to copy this function out and then let's save, and let me confirm if we have our server running. Okay, our server is running here. So heading straight to the browser, let me open the console and let's see if we have any data in the console. Okay, we have an error, unexpected token app.js. Okay, let's see what that is. Okay, we have an error in our URL. This is supposed to be a single forward slash, but we have a double forward slash there. I think that's where the error is coming from. So let me save and then head back to the browser and see if this is corrected. And there you go. We get the response from the backend, and what we have here is an array of objects. We have a data key here, and inside this data key we have coins and we have stats. What we'll be dealing with is the coins. We won't be dealing with these stats, at least not for today, probably some other time. So in these coins we see we have a result of 50 objects inside an array. So each object contains its own specific data, which will be loading into the table on the front end here. So this is the very first step. So the next thing I need to do is to look through the table and then display the coins on the page. So to do that, let's head back to VS Code, and then what I'm going to do is to create a global variable called coins data. So I will say let's coins data is going to be an empty array by default. At least this is something we can access in every part of the application. So I would head back to the load coins function, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to assign the response from the console we saw there to this new variable we created called coins data. So what I'm going to say is coins data is equals to data response, which is our object. So dot data, and what we need is the coins. So say dot coins. So this particular coins we are seeing here. So now this response, the whole of this object is now assigned to this particular global variable called coins data. So that's perfect. Now what I need to do is to loop through the tables in our front end, in our table.html. When I scroll here, we have this ID, so we'll use this ID to loop through. So for us to do that, I'm sure you are familiar with the get element by ID in JavaScript. So that's what we're going to do next. So I'm going to create a variable called coin list. So let's call it coin list. Coin list is equals to documents dot get element by ID, and our ID in the tables.html is called data. So documents dot get element by ID this data. So that's awesome. So let's head over to down the page, and then what we can do is below the load coins variable, we can create another variable called display coins. Now I'll say const display coins. I can't spell display for some reasons. Probably I need to take some spelling lessons. Now const display coins is equals to, that will be, we'll assign it a parameter called coins, and then we'll create an arrow, and then inside here we can say create another variable called const html string. So you see why we need to create this variable here by the time we get to the bottom of the page. So what I can now do is let's complete the variable. So html string is equals to the coins parameter we created in the brackets above. Now we need to map through this because it's an array, and one of the array method is the map method in JavaScript. So this will now be coins.map. So map through each of the coins. So map coin, and then we open another arrow, and then we now return our HTML objects or strings as the case may be. Now to do this, I'm going to be making use of the backtick in JavaScript. This allows us to append data to the what's it called, to the HTML. So this makes things easier. So it's a sort of DOM manipulation in its own way. So when you look at this table.html, you see we have a table body. So we need a table row and then a table data. So this is what we're gonna do. The first one we need is the table row. So I open an HTML tag, then I close this. So inside of this tag, we now create another HTML tag called table data. So this is where we can have the result of our object. So the first one we're gonna have is we're gonna have, and this is gonna be from the objects we have here. Let me go back. We're gonna append them to the table. So the first one I'm going to start with is the name. So I'm going to start with the name. So I'm going to have coin dot name. So that's the first one. The next one I'm going to have, let me copy this down. It's going to be the rank. So coin dot rank. The next one I'm going to have is the price. So when you look at the price, it's not really straightforward. Like we have we have a very large number here. So I'm going to use something in JavaScript called the international number format to format this particular price, and it's going to be in US dollars. So this will make it look nice. So let me head back to VS Code and you see what I mean. So using the international number format, what we can do, let's open the table data or TD as the case may be, and then inside of the TD we can start with a new keyword, and then we have int, which stands for international dot number format. So inside this number format we specify the country. So in our case it's going to be in US dollars. So en dash capital US or uppercase US as the case may be, and then we specify the style, that is the currency that we specify that it's a currency. So we say style, then we say currency, and then what type of currency are we talking about? We are talking about the USD. So we're gonna have currency and then USD in uppercase. So this will now be dot format. Dot format. Then before we now have our coin dot price. So this is going to look reasonable. Like I showed us the sample project in the beginning of this tutorial, so you have an idea how things will be like, how things will look like rather. So to do that, we had to make use of this international number format keyword to make things look nice. So the next one we need to do is the market capitalization. So we open another table data. So in here, let me go back to the page and show us how the market capitalization looks like. You can see we are also dealing with a large number, but I want this to be, when I head over to the CoinRanking website, you can see that the market capitalization, it's kind of having just two numbers here, like 15.29 billion. We are not having so many zeros after it, so we need to do something like this. And while doing this tutorial, I couldn't find anything on JavaScript like a default function or default method that could do that. So I had to write a default function to pass through that, so we don't have to have a long list of zeros. So we can just have one or two numbers. Now to do this, let me just we're gonna create a function called format cache. So let me just write that first. So format cache. So inside format cache, we can just say coin dot market cap, coin dot market cap. So before we proceed, I would like us to deal with this at first. So let's quickly create this function that would help us to reduce the values of the billion. So this variable called format, let me, okay, format cache. So it's going to be equals. Now let me note that I got this function from Stack Overflow and I was able to modify it to suit a particular use case. So there you have that. Now we can now move to the next one. The next one is the icon URL. So this is going to be like an image. So we can just have something like this inside of our TD. We'll have an image. We'll have an image. So I can just say img. Every image has an src, like the source of the image. So our source is coming from CoinRanking, right? From the data in our console. So we can now say something like coin dot icon URL. I think we're good to go with that. Because this is going to be a very large image, we need to limit the amount of height and width it has. So I'm going to set it to an height of 25 as well as a width of 25. So that will bring the size down if it's too large, to make it at least reasonable for anyone who will be seeing the table. And then I think the final thing is to create, in this particular table, is to create the link that takes us to the next page. So this is going to be inside of an href. So I'm going to have an href, an ahref rather. So in here I'm going to open a quote or a string, and then inside the string we can now have coin dot coin ranking URL. It will take us to the particular detail of the specific cryptocurrency we are dealing with. So we want this to open another page entirely. So I'm going to give it a target of underscore blank. So let's close that up. The a tag has a closing, the HTML tag has a closing tag. So we haven't closed that. But before I close that, I would like to have a font or some icon, like a chat icon here. So I can just say I class, give it a class of FASFA dash chat dash line, and then we close that up. And then we also close up the a tag. So that will be all for everything we need inside the table. But it doesn't end there. We need to join as well as append the inner HTML. Like, what do I mean by this? So I'll just say dot join. So inside the dot join, we're gonna have a string, an empty string, and then the coin lists which we have above here from our data, we need to append it to the HTML string we have here. So to do that, I'm going to have coin lists dot the inner HTML. This is a JavaScript keyword. So the inner HTML is equals to the HTML string we created above here. So to get the data appended to the table. Now, finally, for this particular display coins function to have access to this coins data, this name, rank, and the likes of all everything we created here, we need to now call it inside this load coins. But before that, let me save and let's see if we have any errors from what we've done so far. I think we've done a lot. So I'll save and then we reload. Okay, there are no errors, but for the table to show any form of data, like I said, we need to call the display coins function here. Then let's see. So what I can have here is display coins. Then I'm going to pass in the data that we're trying to append to it. So that will be data response.data.coins. So let me paste that in here and then I save, and let's see if we have the results inside the table. Oh, there you go. The table looks funny, but let me close this up. We have our coin ranking name, we have the rank, we have the price, we have the market cap, we have the symbol, and then the icon. I think we made a mistake with one of the table, the TDs. So let me check quickly. I think over here we didn't close it properly. This is one of the difficulties of writing JavaScript inside of HTML inside of JavaScript. You never know when you have an error because there's no form of intelligence to tell you about things you are doing wrong and stuffs like that. So we have a TD opened here. I think this is not supposed to be opened. Let me bring this down for us to see things better. So I think that's all. Let me save and see if it's better now on the page. So I think there's one more item we are not displaying. Yeah, that's the coin dot symbol. We are not displaying the coin dot symbol. So quickly, let me do that. This coin dot symbol is going to be under the market cap. So let me quickly open a TD. So inside of this TD, we can have coin dot symbol. So coin dot symbol, and then let me save that. I believe our table should look perfect now. And there you have it. We have a perfect looking table. We have a name, Bitcoin, which is ranked number 1, the price, the market capitalization. Like I said, it reduced the billions. If I click on the coin detail, it's going to take me to that particular. Let me click on that of Ethereum. So let's see if it takes us to the detail for Ethereum. And there you have it. We have detail for Ethereum. The next thing we need to do is to implement the search. For now, the search is not functional. I think that's the last thing we need to do. After the search, I think we can call it a day. To implement the search, I need to create another variable. In fact, we need to get the filter field, that the filter input field. So I need to look for where we have the search input in our HTML, and where do we have this? So we have this inside the form. So inside of the form, we have the search input, and we have an ID of, it has an ID of filter. So let me copy this filter to make sure nothing is misspelled. So I'm going to create another variable. So const filter input is equals to document. We're going to get that by ID. So we've gotten access to that filter inputs. Now the next variable we need to implement is, I think I would want this to go up, is to create another global variable. So the global variable we call filtered coins. So filtered coins, and it's also going to be an empty array. Now to create this filter inputs, what we need to do is we'll need an event listener, because without an event listener, there's no way we can listen to how the field is being filtered. So this is going to be easy. So let's make reference to this variable we created here called filtered input. So we can just do it just under here. So filtered inputs dot add event listener. Now what kind of event are we trying to listen to? That would be, there are various types of events in JavaScript. As you can see, we have key up, we have mouse down, mouse enter, mouse leave, mouse out, mouse over. The one we're gonna be looking at here is the key up. The key up event listener. Then we're gonna create the events parameter here. So we're gonna have an arrow. So inside there, we're gonna create another variable called const input value. That is, we're trying to get the values of things inside the form, which is very important. Without the values, we can't know what we are filtering. So I'm going to target the event for that. So event.target.value, I'm going to assign that variable to event.target.value. So we can now say the global variable we have here, which is filtered coins. So I can say filtered coins is equals to coins data, which contains data for all of our coins. So coins data, I'm going to filter through this. So I'm going to make use of the dot filter method in JavaScript, filter each of the coin. So I'm going to open a bracket here. I hope you can see what I'm doing properly. Now inside this bracket, we can now return what we are trying to filter. So let me return the coin name. We're filtering by the coin name. So I'm going to say coin dot name dot, we're trying to convert it to lowercase. Like everything we type is going to be converted to lowercase. So to lowercase, because if we don't do it and someone uses an uppercase, it won't filter through it. So we need to specify that. So if it includes, which is also a JavaScript keyword, the input value, that is the event.target.value. So what we are saying, if the coin name, that is the coin.name, includes anything that is inside the input value, if it matches, then return the coin name, like return the result. So for this to work, we now need to call the display coins method of variable we have there. So and we're now going to pass in the filtered coins into it. So I'm going to copy this and then pass in the filtered coins. I think with that, we should be able to get the results of the input field when we type into it. So let's quickly test this out. I'm going to save now and then head back to the browser. The page is loading with the live server extension. So the first coin I think we should search for, and the one which has been making the rounds, I don't know, I don't really follow cryptocurrency. I think let's go for Dogecoin. So let me search for Doge. As you can see, we can filter through the lists so easy. So Dogecoin, if I erase that, it goes back to the default state. And then if you search for something like Bitcoin, it brings out anything that relates to Bitcoin. What else do we have? We can search for do we have Theta? Yes, we have Theta. We can search for Theta. So I think that's all we need to do, so we are able to display the data from the cryptocurrencies. In summary, what we've been able to do today is to display the data on the table from the CoinRanking API. After displaying the data, we are able to filter through each of the lists, and all this is done in less than 100 lines of JavaScript code. Isn't that amazing? Quickly, I want to show us this before I go. You can see that the results is being logged here. This is done. This is coming from the npm package we installed earlier when we creating the server.js, which is called Morgan. It logs every result to the terminal, so it enables us to know what we are doing. So now we have the status. You can see we have the data, and each time we log, it kinds of shows us all the data and all. So it's a very good plugin. If you are into Node.js, you might want to check that out. Anyways, that will be all for me on this video. Thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe so I can keep creating more awesome contents, and I will see you again in the next one.